Hello and welcome to Sports by Compian Pick'em Edition. That's right, we're back with another episode, and we got week 11 ahead of us. And for that, I brought a very special guest, a man who was my first football coach, technically, but we all really knew he was the coach. A man who has driven Costa Rica football to what it is today and continues to be at the helm of these type of things. Mr. Scott Dorothy is in the house. How are you, Scott?
What's going on, Steven? Doing pretty well. Happy to be on your podcast and pick some games, maybe help some viewers out.
Absolutely. Any viewers who do pay attention to us, Scott, we'll be picking in the high. I think we're in the 80s, most of us. So we're actually, maybe not. But anyway, the point is we do mostly pick winners around here. You got to maybe not listen to me when I pick the Bucks because I've been picking them the last 4 weeks to get out of this slump, but they didn't do it. So, maybe don't listen to the homer picks, but other than that, we're usually pretty good over here. We're excited to hop into Week 11. It's upon us, Scott. It's happening right now. The Commanders are already up 7-0. You can see I picked the Eagles for this one. You get the benefit of hindsight for this type of pick.
Well, I'm going to go out of the box here. And even though the Commanders are winning 7-0 at the end of the first quarter, I'm going to take the Eagles in a comeback. They're going to pull this out.
Agreed. They got so much fire talent over there, and they look like they're finally starting to play together and better. Like the early going was rough. I don't know what was going on with Sirianni. He was doing a whole lot more talking to the fans and maybe like coaching his team, but they seem to have figured it out and they're rolling right now.
It just seems like they struggle to put teams away. I've seen the same thing with the Chiefs this year. It's like they're by far the better team, but it's kind of like they're playing with their food, just kind of toying around rather than just going in and dominating.
True. But they got all their firepower back. Jin Daniels is an absolute stud, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I'm with you. I think the Eagles will pull this game out despite being down 7-0 right now, which, as we know in the NFL, it doesn't really mean anything. Next, we got the Packers, old NFC's North showdown. I want to say the Packers have won the last 10 of these meetings. I personally don't foresee this one going any differently. Caleb Williams and the offense over there with the Bears is pretty much a mess. I don't know what they're doing. Some days they're good, but most days they're not. And I think that Packers defense is flying around right now.
Yeah, to me, this is two teams heading in different directions. Packers coming off a bye week. They're finally getting healthy, getting a little bit of rhythm with the receivers and quarterback. They've been shuffling the lineups around. And Bears, yeah, as you said, they just can't put their offense together. I thought it was funny that when Caleb Williams got drafted, he texted the punter and said, "Don't worry, you're not going to be punting much." And going into this week, the punter has more punting yards than he has passing yards. So
yeah, I've seen that stat circle.
this.
Yeah, for sure. I think Eberflus is going to be out of there soon enough, much to the joy of Bears fans everywhere. But, man, they're just in a vicious cycle of drafting a quarterback, firing the coach immediately, and then that quarterback's pretty much fucked because now it's like a whole new guy comes in.
Never a good thing when they fire the OC and the receiver says, "Yeah, that should have probably happened a while ago."
Especially a guy like Keenan Allen coming out and saying that, like, "Oh man,
let's just kick the guy while he's down."
Huh? Anyway, Detroit is absolutely on fire right now, and they can apparently throw 5 interceptions and still win games. So I absolutely think they're going to be fighting against the Jaguars, who I think Trevor Lawrence is out for this game too. Or is he coming back?
Lawrence will be out this week. Lions are 14-point favorites. Whenever you're a 2-touchdown favorite in the NFL, you should win the game.
Yeah, agreed. Jaguars have been an absolute mess. They don't hand the ball off to Tank Bigsby. I don't get it, Scott. Every time those 2 wins, both times Tank Bigsby went off for over 100 yards. It seems like a simple formula, but yet they refuse to hand the guy the ball.
It seems like he battles to stay healthy when they do that, so they're kind of like keeping him on a workload, and Etienne hasn't been what we all thought. Anyone that took him in fantasy is hating it right now.
Oh, for sure. Although I've always been skeptical at Etienne. He hasn't really had that many good seasons together.
Yeah, that should be an easy one for the Lions.
Should be an easy one for the Lions. They're going to be probably 9-1 after this week. Pretty crazy. The Vikings are headed to Tennessee. I think they also have this game in hand, as the Tennessee Titans are also a mess. Will Levis didn't throw any interceptions last week, Scott. So there's that. At least he's showing progression.
And Ridley had a big game for Tennessee, but
Ridley has just gone off ever since Hopkins left. Ridley's like really just coming into his own now.
Yeah, I mean, for fantasy, that's great. But when we're talking about picking a game here, you have to go with Minnesota and their defense, and they have, the best player on the field with Jefferson. even though Darnold's been struggling, the Vikings seem to keep games close with their defense and coordinator Flores over there. So you'd have to think he's going to cause trouble for the Titans. So Vikings a 6-point favorite. I'd take them to win this game.
Yeah, same. It's interesting with Sam Darnold. I do hope he figures it out a little bit because it's definitely been a bit of a midseason slump here for him. But pulling for him, tough
Yeah,
time over
they're
there
going
with
to
the
stick
Jets.
with them. I mean, they're still winning games. That's the good thing. When as a quarterback, if you could play poorly and still win games, it gives you confidence. You're not losing the games, and you can only get better.
Absolutely. I mean, that's how Jared Goff must feel after Monday Night Football. Just 5 interceptions, no big deal. We still win. In contrast, you got Joe Burrow over there, who doesn't seem to matter how many touchdowns he throws, they're probably still going to lose. How's that?
Isn't that funny?
How
Yeah.
would you feel about that as the quarterback there with Bengals?
You have Burrow throwing 5 touchdowns and losing, and Goff throwing 5 interceptions and winning. That's the NFL this year, folks.
Nothing really makes too much sense.
No, not at all.
Speaking of quarterbacks who are struggling, Mr. Melchinash himself, Gardner Minshew, travels to Miami. He's getting the start again, Scott. The Raiders just love to go through all three of the starters over there. They're trying to find somebody. They want anybody.
Yeah, O'Connell's still hurt, and Riddler obviously isn't the guy, so they have no other choice than to go with Minshew. He has that little Brett Favre in him where he'll throw some tight window passes, and some will look good and others won't. And at the end, I just think Miami's coach is so smart and so good to get his guys the ball, and they're a different team with Tua. Tua's not one of my favorite quarterbacks, but in that system, he just continues to shine and gets the ball to the right guys.
Okay. What do you they do seem to be having a little bit of a rally here, or at least after that last game against LA, which their defense looked really good in that game. They were all over Stafford. What do you think? Do you think they can pull this out? Can they have a mid-season rally and get to the playoffs still? I mean, they're only 3-6, not totally out of reach.
Yeah, I think they have about, from what I read, I think it's like a 15% chance to make the playoffs. You remember, playoffs are a little bit more expanded nowadays. So it's a long shot, but they do have a chance. And obviously, this game will get them heading in the right direction. Being 7.5-point favorites, they should win this game at home.
Nice. And then we got the Rams traveling to the Patriots. A lot of easy picks here this week, Scott.
Nothing's easy in betting, let me tell you.
That's fair.
You in trouble.
That's fair. I mean, if you go with money line against, like, for example, Detroit, got an old 1,000 on the money line. Gotta love it. But anyway, yeah. So the Rams are traveling to New England. You gotta love what you're seeing from Drake May right now.
Yeah, May's improving. The Patriots were supposed to be one of the worst teams, if not the worst team going into the season. They had a projected season win total of 4.5 wins, and they already have 3 wins. So it's going to be getting close here. In this game, Rams, I believe, are 4.5-point favorites since they're on the road. If Patriots defense can contain the Rams offense, kind of like what the Dolphins did, then they'll have a chance. But if Rams get back to, finding the right plays, getting the ball in the right hands, I see the Rams winning this one.
Yeah, agreed. Matthew Stafford's starting to fire on all cylinders. Those receivers are starting to, get more comfortable after coming back from so many injuries. It's kind of crazy over there.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, they're rolling. What's really impressive about the Rams right now is how good that defense is on all, like, 4th and 5th round picks and, like, 6th round picks. It's like, dude, those GMs know how to draft.
Yeah, at the same time, it just shows how valuable Aaron Donald was. I mean, talk about a beast. When you look at that defense, you just imagine if they had him, they would really be a top-tier team.
For sure. But, man, that guy probably was one of the best we've seen come through the D-line. Like, I don't know if it's hard to argue, like, a lot of other guys in his era that might have been better. Like,
definitely during his era, I think the only guy that might even come close to comparing would be J.J. Watt, but it's a whole different type of player.
Right, because he's on the edge. Yeah. And also, Donald came in a little bit after JJ was already there, but not too long. But yeah, agreed. Anyway, moving on now. We got Cleveland going to New Orleans. Now, I picked Cleveland on this one, and here's my reasoning. New Orleans is a hot mess. I have no idea how they beat Atlanta last week. I mean, I think when you fire the coach and you get the interim coach in there, I think it's a wake-up call for a lot of the players in the building. They're like, all right, dude, people are getting fired out here. I got to pull my head out of my ass and play better. And you usually see that win from the interim head coach. But then the next week, it starts to come apart again. You start to remember why the team had to fire their head coach. And I think that's what's going to happen in New Orleans. Also, wishful thinking. I don't
No, I
like New
agree.
Orleans.
There is definitely an effect with fired coaches. The team reacts, especially when they promote within. You know, the guy was a defensive coordinator. He was all fired up and pushing guys around. So I think they were happy to get him the win. But yeah, Cleveland's coming off a bye. You got your boy Jameis Winston there,
Love
and
him.
you got to see with him. You know, he can go for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, or 200 yards and 3 interceptions. So you never know what you're gonna get. And this game's a pick 'em, and literally that's what it is, a coin toss. I mean, you're looking at maybe the Saints at home, or do you prefer Cleveland coming off a bye and Jameis Winston having a little revenge game going back home to New Orleans?
That and Chubb has got to start getting comfortable at this point. He's been slow since getting back, and I think he's going to start to hit his stride now with a bye week under his belt and some game film to kind of look over. Because he's not fully running to it, which is understandable coming back from a massive injury like that. And this is also wishful thinking because on my fantasy team, but I need him to pick it up. Cleveland needs him to pick it up, and I think he's a man for the job.
I think all teams do better coming off the bye, and if you have good coaching, it's a huge plus because not only do you get guys healthy, but you have 2 weeks to plan, 2 weeks to fix things. So let's go ahead and take Cleveland in this one.
Love it. Before we move on, my favorite Jameis Winston quote is that he will keep both teams in the game and then decide at the end who's going to win.
Exactly. Well, he said he didn't know if his coach Arians was white or black for the first 20 games. So I don't know if he knows what team he's playing for half the time.
He just sees the open receiver, whatever jersey they're wearing, he's going to hit him, Scott. All right?
He sees someone open.
He's hitting them. It doesn't matter what jersey they're wearing. Love it for him.
Right.
We got a good game coming up here. NFC North, the classic rivalry. The Baltimore Ravens travel to the Steelers. I think I read that like Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh are playing each other for the 36th time, which you don't see today in the NFL anymore with these coaches getting fired every 2 seconds. So
now, if you take away playoff games, I mean, if there are no playoff games, that's 18 years. So that's a long time for any job, let alone the NFL head coaching job. And it always seems these games seem to land like on 3 or low score, and it's always like 20-17, and whoever makes that field goal at the end or whoever gets a sack fumble, it's just always a grind with these two teams. Even though this year both teams have been way better offensively than defensively, it just seems like these slugfests come down to the last minute.
For sure. And well, I mean, when you say that something like that, it does come down to that Steelers probably have a much better defense than the Ravens. The Ravens have like an opportunistic defense, but the Steelers defense is just that normal, solid, defense we've all come to expect from them.
But the Ravens have been a top 3 offense, which we haven't seen, in years past. Usually the Ravens relied on a good running game with an O-line and defense. And you got Lamar, Henry, and some of these guys. Flowers has been exceptional. I mean, I never thought he would be this good coming out of the draft. So basically you have the Ravens offense going against the Steelers defense. That's going to be the key matchup and who can pull out the win. I'm going to leave this one up to you, Steve. Who you got?
I got the Ravens selected right now. You kind of sold me on a little bit of the Steelers defense, but I got to believe in Lamar Jackson. The guy he doesn't like to lose a lot. I don't know if you've noticed this about him, but like if the other team tries to do this stuff like score too many points, he gets crazy. He's like, all right, let me back onto the field, and then he just like runs over everybody and scores himself. So I don't see the man losing right now. Russell Wilson's hot though. Russell Wilson's hot. He's three-game winning streak already.
Well, how long can that last? We all know who Russell Wilson is. But the thing, like you just said with Lamar, is if you're going against Hayward and Watt on the defensive line, if anyone could get away from those guys, it's going to be Lamar. So he can extend some plays and maybe find, his tight end, Mark Andrews, get a couple red zone opportunities, and they pull that off.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the Baltimore for this one, even though they are on the road. I think they'll probably split this series, but the first one we'll give to Baltimore while they're hot right now.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, we got the Jets hosting the Colts. The Colts, I think they're going back to Richardson now, which is great for Colts fans to see. I mean, I know they probably were calling for Flacco to start, but then after he comes in and just does Flacco things, and we're reminded why he's Flacco, they're like, all right, yeah, never mind. We'll go back to Richardson now.
Yeah, it's a lot different when you're preparing for Flacco or if you're preparing for Richardson and then all of a sudden Flacco comes in and now it's a curveball. But when you're preparing all week for Joe Flacco, it's a lot easier for the defense and you can game plan and just sit back and eat them up. But I think in this situation where Richardson starts and he gets hurt or he gets pulled, then you got to have a whole nother game plan for Flacco. So I'm happy to see Richardson get the job back. He hasn't been well, he hasn't been playing well. He turns the ball over, a lot of self-inflicted turnovers, but at the same time, he has some, athletic, unique plays that he can make. So the Colts defense is decent. They got a run game. It's just the turnovers that have been killing them. And you can say the same for the Jets. Talk about a team that completely fell apart. Let's talk about the Jets a little bit here.
Yeah, what is going on with Aaron Rodgers over there? Because he has all the people to throw it to, so you can't even blame that. He has Brees Hall, who's having a terrible year at running back. But yeah, in general, it's a weird situation over there. What is happening?
Well, what I noticed is when they started this losing streak is they lost their left tackle and they had to move a guy out there. And once you start moving pieces on the offensive line, it
Oh yeah,
affects the whole unit. And bottom line is when I watch the Jets, they throw the ball too much. I mean, I think they need to really get into just an old style offense of establishing the run and then let Rodgers go a little play action. But right now, it's just like, let's just throw. And then, oh, we got Brees Hall. Let's give him the ball. And I think that's the wrong way. And at the end of the day, nothing's working. They fired their coach, which was probably the wrong coach. They brought in Adams. He hasn't done anything. So maybe this is the get right game, but I think they've waited a little too long to get right.
yeah. I mean, they need to figure it out soon. Like much like at the Dolphins. I mean, they're 3-7 now, so keep a sliver for them. They absolutely need to win this game if they're gonna have any type of chance.
Yeah, I'll take
I
the
think
Jets in a must-win
they got this
situation.
game for sure. I
Yeah,
don't know about their
must-win
playoff hopes.
situation. You got to think they're going to find a way.
Yeah, I think so for sure. Before moving on, and this is a whole another topic, probably be a different video, so just your shallow thoughts on this. But a lot of these rookies coming in nowadays, you kind of talk about Anthony Richardson. It just seems like they all have a little bit of this hero complex, where they all like want to run outside the pocket and have that long pass down the field for some big gain, which is all great and fine. But like, it just seems like a lot of these kids haven't ever heard of throwing the ball away. And it's leading to so many more interceptions and so many more of them just running out there and getting hit and then just fumble. And a lot of these guys are washing out with these crazy ass hero complexes.
Well, what happens is they got away with doing it in high school. And then in college, they start playing with some D1 prospects that can go and get those, deep balls. And so they think, oh, it's worked for me before. I've been a winner. I've been, all state, all conference. It works. But in the NFL, everyone is all state and all conference. In NFL, those windows and those air balls that you throw 60 yards down the field, it just allows another guy with a 4.2 speed to run under it or make a play. So if you're not on time in the NFL, you got no chance. And, it's not the same as high school or college. One stat I saw with Richardson that was pretty funny is that he had only played, I think, 20 games, in college, which is nothing. Like, nowadays they're playing 14-game seasons. So that's basically 1.5 seasons. And I think he could have benefited from more time. Like I said, physically he can do it, but the NFL is just a whole nother level.
For sure. Absolutely. Well, speaking of young quarterbacks, Bo Nix down there with Denver, doing a decent job, doing enough to get wins. That defense is pretty powerful. This is maybe an optimistic pick because I need the Falcons to lose, but I am picking Denver for this one. That defense absolutely has been humiliating anybody besides the Baltimore Ravens. So
yeah, no, I think Broncos have proven that they're legit. I mean, at the beginning of the year, it was all defense, and Nix was kind of getting used to the NFL level that we just talked about. They have a great coach. We've all seen what Sean Payton can do, and he knows how to, work with quarterbacks. And that defense just continues to keep them in games. And Nix, he's doing a good job of not turning the ball over, mixing the pass and run. And Denver at home, there is a home field advantage. They're playing outdoors against a dome team like the Falcons. And I saw today that Cousins is a little banged up in the shoulder. So Broncos are going to end up being 3-point favorites at home. And I think you have to take them, pick them. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, hopefully can pull it off. It'd be sweet for Lance to lose another one. And yeah, well, I think Denver can pull it off. Like you said, Sean Payton, like I hate the guy, but he's a really good NFL coach.
He is. He just
All right, so Seattle's traveling to San Francisco. Seattle's been reeling ever since that 3-0 start. They're now 1-5 ever since that. I don't think they figured out here against the 49ers. Although the 49ers were sloppy in their win against the Buccaneers, I think Jake Moody now has a week back from his injury and hopefully figures his life out with some practice kicks or whatever. But I think they get it done. I don't think Seattle has shown enough this year, really.
Yeah, the only pluses I see for Seattle is coming off a bye and getting Metcalf back, but I don't think it's enough against a good 49ers team. 49ers are favored by 6.5 points. Like you said, they've won some close games. Geno Smith has been turning the ball over. At the beginning of the year when he wasn't, that's when they were winning games. Kenneth Walker's been great for fantasy purposes and in real life, but I just think the Niners, pretty much own that division. And being at home, I see them winning this game.
Agreed. Yeah, for sure. And they're also getting pieces back. They just came off the bye before they played the Bucks, so they're still pretty fresh themselves. Kittle's a little banged up, but he's always banged up. I think he's questionable every single week, so I don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah, they got McCaffrey last week. I think he'll be better this second week. And the big surprise that not many people talk about is this receiver Jennings. He's just been great for the Niners.
Oh yeah, Juwan Jennings has been great. Also, the Buccaneers got to experience Alex Pearsall, their new guy they just drafted, who was very fast. Let me tell you. Yeah. So they got some weapons over there. Anyway, moving on. We got Buffalo hosting Kansas City. I think everyone's hoping that Buffalo can stop the madness.
This is the game of the week for sure. This is the
game of the week. I absolutely have Buffalo picked for this one. Josh Allen has been good. They haven't been dominant. They haven't been like destroying teams, but they have been good. And I just don't think the Kansas City Chiefs are that good of a team. They got to be like one of the worst 9-0 teams of all time. But whatever. That's maybe just be the.
Well, not many teams go 9-0. So if they do, yeah. But I think this is going to be the first game where we actually disagree, Steve. And I'm going to go with the Chiefs here, and I'll tell you why. I think Bills have been good. Josh Allen has been at an MVP level. Cook has been running the ball. I'm not impressed with Cooper or Coleman yet as receivers, and I think the Bills defense is not what we're used to seeing from the Bills defense. I think it's been their offense keeping them in the games and winning these games. Now, Bills obviously being at home is a plus. That's why they're favored by 2.5 points. It's more just basically they're saying these teams are equal and the Bills are at home. But I'll tell you what, Chiefs, they find a way to win these games because
they sure do.
Normally in the past, it was because of Mahomes, but this year it's different. It's been because of their defense. Their defense has been unbelievable. And Mahomes and Kelsey, and with the injuries to Pacheco and Rice, the offense just hasn't been good. I saw a stat where, they went 4 games without scoring in the third quarter, which is amazing because Andy Reid is one of the best in making adjustments. And for some reason, they come out in the third quarter and just don't get things going. And talk about a team that likes to play with their food. They just seem to just wait, and then try to win it at the end. And this isn't a team, this Buffalo team, that you can do that with. But I do think the Chiefs' defense is what wins this game for them.
That defense is legit. They're very, very good. So, yeah, strong, compelling argument. I think I'm sticking with Buffalo just purely on that. Just really can't see myself picking the Chiefs right now.
We'll have to let the listeners decide which one they like there.
That's right. Go ahead and comment.
With Steven or with Coach Scott. We'll see which one wins that.
What are you guys going for?
Let us know.
Speaking of people who throw 5 touchdowns and don't get a win, the Cincinnati Bengals travel to the Chargers. 2 2020 draft picks going against each other. I'm picking Burrow for this one because they desperately need a win. Another must-win situation for them right now, basically. I think, God damn, they just have so much talent. If this defense could just do something, they can win.
It's been one of those years where when the defense plays well, the offense doesn't. When the offense does, the defense doesn't. And that's a bad sign for a playoff team. And that's what this team should be, right? Bengals, coming into the year, they're supposed to compete with the Ravens for the division. And I even had the Bengals as being a Super Bowl contender, or at least an AFC conference contender. And, I think the talent's still there. They're still, 40% of the season left, so they can get it right. But let me tell you, this Chargers team has been unbelievable. They have some chemistry with Harbaugh, with Herbert. They talk about old school football. They just sit there and rely on their stud offensive line, running the ball, Herbert making the right decisions, even running the ball himself, playing solid defense. They've only had a game with over 40 points combined both teams one time this year. So they play low scoring, old school football. And I think that's the type of style they want to go against the Bengals, whereas the Bengals want to let it fly.
It's a compelling argument. And they are at home. And yeah, Herbert has been making all the right decisions this year. So are you picking the Chargers for this one, is what you're saying?
No, I'm not. I'm just giving you a little argument. I'll take T. Higgins coming back, and let's go Bengals.
They got to win this one. It's a must-win for them. The Chargers are not nearly as desperate. And yeah, I think that Joe Cool will find a way.
To be fair, the line's only Chargers -1.5. So, I mean, that's basically a pick 'em as it is. So it's more so, do you believe in the Bengals defense, or do you believe, that the Chargers defense can stop the Bengals offense?
Fair. Yeah, pretty much. That's what it comes down to. In this case, we believe that the
We'll take
Bengals offense will be too much.
Yep.
All right, so moving on. We got CJ Stroud just having himself a bit of a sophomore slump here. But, man, this is a good right game for him because, man, the Cowboys are just an absolute mess. Jerry Jones seems intent on not letting that team be successful. We both know Richard Compian, hardcore Cowboys fan, is suffering, in these times.
Yeah, because this was the year, Steve. This was the year.
It's always the year.
Don't we hear that every year with Cowboy fans?
Yeah, it's every year. You're not wrong.
But yeah, reality is they've had injuries. They couldn't get things going. By far the best player, CeeDee Lamb. He held out. He came in. He was putting up numbers. Then Dak started to struggle. They have no run game whatsoever. This week, they said, I can't even pronounce his name, but the other running back was going to get the majority of the share. They just got Parsons back, but they didn't show anything on offense last week with Cooper Rush. And I think Texans defense is a very underrated unit. And now that Texans are getting Nico Collins back, I think Stroud, he should be able to get some type of form. And talk about beast, Joe Mixon, where most teams thought he was done, he's just shown up and he gets his 100 yards and a touchdown a game. For people that have him in fantasy, they're loving him.
Oh, absolutely. I've always been a Joe Mixon believer. I bet the Bengals are missing him a little bit right now. Not that Chase Brown isn't doing all right, but he's more of a receiving back, and I think they're missing those hard grinding yards that Mixon used to get them.
Definitely. Well, we all know people don't want to pay running backs anymore, but
it's starting to show that you might be wrong.
A rare situation. I would say Mixon and Saquon are the two situations. Well, I guess Derrick Henry. So
Henry too. It's three this year. That's more than usual. I'm with you. Usually running backs are not worth their money, but those three guys are proving the thing wrong.
Yeah, so hopefully that'll open it up for running backs because, when we grew up, running backs were probably, besides quarterback, obviously, they were the key position. I mean, you look at guys like Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith, LaDainian Tomlinson. There were so many good running backs. And now, you try to look for them in fantasy and there's this work share, there's a committee at running back and they don't pay them. They don't draft them. You get one every first round now. And so it's nice to see someone get paid and actually, overplay their contract. So I see the Texans winning this one as well.
Got the Texans for this one, as is most of ESPN pick'ems apparently. That is basically our conclusion for Week 11 of the NFL. Make sure you're following our picks because Mr.Doherty does this for a living as well. That's right.
Yes, sir. A lot of favorites this week, a lot of road favorites, which are always dangerous in the NFL. But, some of these, when you're doing a pick'em contest like this or Survivor, it's hard to go against the favorite. You got to make a compelling case for an underdog to be able to pick them. If we're talking about point spreads, that's a different story because a lot of these teams, they can win and not cover. And I think Vegas and the odds makers, they do a great job of making the spreads. But when it comes to just pick them, you have to look hard at the favorite and find a reason why they shouldn't win.
Agreed. Well said, Scott. Do you have any final words here for the Sports by Compian Nation at large?
Well, just like any podcast, if you're listening, support it, make a comment, like it, whatever you got to do to keep this going and share it so more people can see, hear, and listen to this. And hopefully we can build something up.
Absolutely. Love to hear it, Scott. Thank you for coming on. Thanks, people, for listening. Like Scott said, make sure you guys are liking and subscribing. Sports by Compian. Out.